The Wheel of Time, Season 2, Episode 6. I really liked this episode. Maybe my favorite of the entirety of the TV show so far. Might need to think about that a little bit more, but really enjoyed Episode 6. Even after Episode 5, I mean, a lot of people are very high on Season 2. After Episode 5, I was still kind of, it's good, but at the same time, could it be better? Yes. And Episode 6 was better. Definitely better.
This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
The best thing about this episode, and something I think they're doing very well in Season 2, is in this episode they had a narrative around Iguane, and they pointed most of the plot of the episode all towards her. It's tough when you have so many different storylines that they're juggling. There's at least 4 or 5. Can't cut off the top of my head, but there's several in each episode, right? But they point them all towards Iguane in some way. I mean, maybe not Moraine's part as much, but at least Rand visits her. The Nynaeve and Elaine stuff was obviously very geared towards Iguane. And then, most of the time was spent with Iguane. There was even a little bit with Loyal where they're saying, Iguane is going to get through this. And that really makes you, as a watcher of the show, connect to the emotional stakes of the Iguane conflict. And I think that was really well done. It's interesting that even though, after, I'm not going to do spoilers for future, but after this episode, Iguane didn't win the conflict. She showed that she's resolute and strong, but she didn't necessarily win the conflict. She kind of caved to the Soldam, right? And we still feel, as a watcher of the show, we're pumped for her because of the journey that she went through and how strong she showed she was, and hopefully what that means for, hope for the future. And that's really well done. Even though your character doesn't necessarily win, you're still pumped for her. So yeah, I can't say enough positive about this. There were maybe a few things throughout the episode that bugged me, but I'm going to start with the positive because I really enjoyed the majority of this episode. The whole ending sequence with Yellow Aja, don't remember her name, sacrificing herself and getting captured, and Nynaeve and Elaine watching from afar as Iguane is struggling to, against the torture for the 10th time in the episode, right? That whole bit, I think, was put together pretty well. Great, tension throughout that sequence. The only thing that I'll say against the whole Iguane plot was maybe it was a little heavy-handed in that obviously the show was, I felt as a viewer, very, very obviously the show wants me to cheer for Iguane and wants me to pull for her conflict and wants me to get emotionally invested. Maybe just a little more subtlety, But, I don't know, Wheel of Time is not necessarily a subtle book or show, so it kind of fits the brand. I didn't necessarily mind it, but I feel like maybe the show could trust me as a viewer a little bit more to recognize what's going on with our characters rather than have it, stuffed down our throats. Maybe just one fewer scene with Iguane struggling and struggling. And, the line with Loyal is oh, she's so strong, right? It's just a little more, I don't know, let the viewer kind of decide for themselves what to think rather than the show almost making me feel like I must cheer for Iguane because every other character wants me to. I might like to decide that for myself a little bit, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way because I think it was well done and I did cheer for her and I did feel the emotions and my heart was pounding and I was pumped at the end, even though, like I said, she didn't necessarily win the conflict. But also, make it a little more subtle. Let me decide for myself that I want to cheer for her rather than being forced into it. Other parts of the episode, I like what they're doing now with Moraine, Lan, Rand, Swan, Matt, everyone kind of coming together and carrying. One of my biggest criticisms, my two biggest criticisms, honestly, the two by far so far, were that Matt has done nothing, and I don't like the Moraine-Lan relationship. And Matt has finally done something, and I think it's well acted, and we finally get to see the character a little bit, and there's still this conflict that he has. He still feels like he's kind of on the outside looking in with his friends, and that's well done. And the Moraine-Lan relationship, didn't really get addressed per se in this episode, but we do have the potential for in episode 7, them finally coming together, hopefully reconciling in some way, and I'm really glad that Swan is on the scene as well because she hasn't been in the season at all, and she was a highlight from season 1, and she's immediately felt here. Her presence as an actress is awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens here in episode 7. I'm interested to see, this is over in Carrion, which is really far away from Falm. what are we going to get at the end of this season? Like, is this going to be one big thing? I assume it is. I mean, I don't see any reason to think that it wouldn't, that all our characters would not come together in Falma. That kind of needs to happen, and if it doesn't, honestly, I'll be pretty disappointed. But they're pretty far away right now, and things in Falma with Iguane are like, we don't have a lot of time for someone to get on a horse and ride over here. So how are they going to get there? We know there's fast travel methods in Wheel of Time. The only one we've really been introduced to so far are the ways. And I don't know, if it would feel kind of clunky if all of a sudden we are also going over to Falma using the ways with Rand and crew. But, there's other things. They've set up maybe some hints for some other ways to get over there. I would be fine with them doing that, but it does need to happen. If they don't all get together for a big thing in Falma, and before the show we were told there's a big battle, and so this better happen, I think that it will. I don't want to, put negative light on the show saying this is lame, it's not happening. I think it will happen, but I'm just kind of wondering how at this point. I also really like how hard they're leaning into the dream world, Tel'aran'rhiod, finally. And this has so much potential for cool stuff, and they've explored some of it, and the Forsaken being a big part of it through the dream world is awesome. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the Forsaken, because right now they seem like they have their fingers in everything. And so what freedom does that give our characters to do anything without being observed and manipulated by the Forsaken? That'll be interesting to see what they do with that going forward, because we do need to give our characters, a little bit of freedom, leeway to act and feel like they're powerful and not just being manipulated by a Forsaken, but we'll see. A couple little things that I didn't like really just kind of came down to the way that some effects and action sequences are done. I don't want to say I don't like the action sequences. That is not true. I do enjoy them. However, I think that they're a little cheesy at times with the way that they do some of the sound effects and the slowdowns. The slowdowns, I think, are the cheesiest thing. They seem to go to this every single action scene where there's a dramatic slow motion shot, and this time it was the Yellow Aja and her warder looking at each other, and I don't know, that just seemed cheesy to me. Like, we're in this high stakes battle and cool stuff is happening, and then all of a sudden, like, really, I don't know, that it's just kind of juvenile. A couple other minor things. Rand going Super Saiyan in front of Logain did not look good. Maybe it was just my TV. Let me know if your TV looked better, but it was just like way too bright and it seemed cheesy, and it looked like he was going Super Saiyan. It looked anime, and it didn't look good. That needed more work. And some of the Iguane torture reverb stuff, I don't know, it was okay, but looked a little clunky at times. Didn't super bother me. It maybe just happened so often that after a while I was like, oh man, I don't want to see this again because it's kind of gross to see, but I guess that's the intended effect. Kind of on that note, what do you think of the Shan-Chan accents? I'm a little split here because I see what they're trying to do. They're trying to create an alien society that looks and feels robotic and is easy to dislike. And I kind of think they can do that without the accents because they enslave women that can channel and torture them. I don't think we necessarily need to have this whole extra level of like weird alien accents to make me think that these people are evil, right? And the accents just seem kind of clunky. It's like, I don't know, do people really talk like this? Anyway, let me know if this bothered you. Maybe it's ingenious. Maybe I'm just not buying it. The first time I heard it when Turok's voice spoke, I legitimately thought something was going on in my room and the computer voice was like reading out closed captions because first of all, I could not see Turok's voice on screen, or maybe I just wasn't looking at where he was talking. And so I was like, where's this voice coming from? It does not sound like a real person. So anyway, let me know. Maybe everyone loves it and I'm way off here, but I'm kind of on the fence. I get what they're trying to do, but at the same time, it's like, it's a little weird. All right, that's a wrap for episode 6. I loved it. I really did. I think I'll give this episode like an 8 out of 10, 8.5 out of 10. Definitely one of my highest rated episodes of Wheel of Time. And like Josh and I were talking earlier in our episode 4 and 5 review on the podcast, I think it's a great sign. Josh brought this up. I think it's a great sign that the episodes are getting stronger this season as time goes on versus in season 1 where it seemed like they blew all their budget right away. And then from there it was kind of a little clunky at times. But in general, I think we're getting better and better here. 2 episodes left. I think there's a lot that they can do in these episodes. I think they've set up a lot. I expect good TV, And at this point, this is the most excited I've been for a Wheel of Time episode to come out since the very inception of the show, when I was just, watching the casting stuff and watching the premiere party with Daniel Green and everyone down at the red carpet, right? Like, I was so pumped before those first 3 episodes. After seeing that, I was like, yeah, okay, it's good, but I'm not quite as pumped for future episodes. But now I'm not back to that level of excitement. It's hard to get back to the initial level of excitement for something new that you love. But I am like pretty close, because I think this is starting to become higher quality. It's trending in the right direction. So looking forward to the future.